Okay, I'm going to show you how to create the blur effect on your photos in Photoshop. Okay, this is the tutorial for how to create how to make your backgrounds blurry and focus on a specific area in your picture. So you just want to click and drag the photos that you want to use. I'm going to be using this particular photo. Just click and drag it onto Photoshop, and then your image should pop up on there. So okay, now you have your image loaded on Photoshop. In order to get started with blurring the background, the very first thing you want to do is you want to go to layers and you want to duplicate the layer and just rename this your blur layer. So, okay, if you open your layers window, and again, this window doesn't pop up, you want to go to Windows and look for layer, but mine's already checked out, so you should have one layer that says background, and then another one that says blur. And what we're going to do essentially with this is we're going to apply the blur onto our blur layer. And usually the way that these layers windows works is it's the same idea as when you're stacking up one sheet of paper on top of another. This background layer, which is the same layer, is behind this blur layer. So you kind of have two of the same layers going there. But it'll make more sense when I apply the blur. So you go to Filter, and you go to Blur, and you go to Geshwan Blur. And this is where you're going to apply your blur. So you want to mess around. You want to toggle this this panel, and you just want to make sure it's blurry enough where your background's blurry. And I just want to focus on just the sky right here. So this is pretty good. I'm going to click OK. And now if I click on the eyeball on the layers window, now you kind of see the idea of what I was talking about before. This eyeball hides what this layer is. So under that layer is your background layer, which is your original picture, and on the very top is your blur layer. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go back to layers, and you're going to create a layer mask. So you go to layer mask and reveal all. We're going to go more in depth with layer masks. What you can do with layer masks as well as you can cut up images and kind of combine them together in different images. But specifically with the layer masks, we're just going to erase part of the blur layer so then this layer is showing up on it. So in order to do that, you go to your brush tool, okay, and you make sure you have one setting on your brush black and one white, and you want to have the color being the black, and you can switch it around with this arrow. So you want to set your opacity to 30 because you don't want your brush to be all the way dark as it can be, and make sure your mode is set on normal. So sometimes people mess around with these different modes, but make sure it's on normal, otherwise it's not going to work. And you want to make sure to get a big enough brush where you can get in big layer areas. So I'm going to color in just this guy here, and I'm just continuing to click to make him more sharper. So I want to just keep him sharp in the picture. And oh yeah, when you pick your brushes too, you want to make sure you have a brush with a fuzzy end, so it shows up good when you do the blur. Alright, so I'm just coloring him in, and any areas where you color in these areas are going to be sharp, but what's essentially happening in Photoshop is it's just erasing the top layer. But again, we're going to go more in depth with layer masks. And then maybe this guy here, I might have him just a little bit in focus, but not too much. And if you want to make sure you clean your edges up nicely. So you want to zoom in. Zooming in is Command plus to zoom in, Command minus to zoom out. And this is where you want to start getting your smaller brushes. And you just want to change it to white. And this is going to actually re-blur your picture. So you can go back and fix some of these areas if you didn't want to blur some areas. But I'm not going to go too in depth with cleaning it up. But when you're changing your projects, though, you want to make sure it looks nice. Okay, but if I you can see the difference though if I click on that eyeball. And also you can change the opacity of your layers. So when you change that opacity, it's going to sharpen it up a little bit. But if it's too blurry, you can sharpen it up a little bit on your background. And so that's how you can apply that blur layer. And that's how you apply the blur on your pictures in Photoshop.